It's Monday, December 14th, and time for your Barbados Today Morning News Update. The head of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association believes the region's bread and butter industry will bounce back from the global health crisis, and he has strongly disagreed with critics who are of the view that the region should diversify and move away from tourism. The CHTA's Chief Executive Officer and Director General Frank Comito made the comments as he addressed a virtual forum hosted by the association, the Caribbean Tourism Organization, and the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center recently on the topic, Tourism, the Key to the Caribbean's Economic Recovery.
We're resilient. Our industry is incredibly resilient globally as well as regionally. And you can see here, this is regional visitor arrivals impact, how quickly we rebound over the past 20 odd years from various types of crisis situations. We bounce back, and we bounce back usually better and stronger than we were. Next slide, please. In today's COVID-19 global environment, some say it's time to diversify away from tourism. Tourism presents, I disagree fully with that. I think tourism presents the Caribbean with its greatest opportunity to recover and renew. And as we heard from some of the other presenters, diversifying with and within tourism should guide our reshaping. We should go with our strengths.
He maintained that tourism has been a driver of positive change in the region for more than half a century.
Over the past 50, 60 years, major revenue and employment generator, drives infrastructure development, builds human resource capacity, and develops our people. It's compatible with tourism, with the Caribbean culture of hospitality. So it fits really well with who we are and what we offer. Supports and creates local entrepreneurial activity, enhances safety and security, particularly around our airports, promotes cultures, celebrates uniqueness, differentiates our markets. It attracts added airlift for travel, not only for visitors, but for residents, and that reduces the costs as well, even though we like it reduced even more. It protects and enhances the environment. Not always, but generally it does. It's part of our value. It facilitates recovery following a crisis, and it's a standards bearer. It challenges us to do our best, and we can see that in how many Caribbean nationals have matriculated and moved up into the ranks of management and ownership in so many different ways.
Prime Minister Mia Mottley has told world leaders it's time to move away from the rhetoric to real effective action in order to address the climate crisis. The Prime Minister was addressing the virtual Climate Ambition Summit 2020 over the weekend to mark the 5th anniversary of the landmark Paris Agreement. She told the summit, hosted by the United Kingdom, the United Nations, and France, that the optimism and joy felt with regards to the Paris Agreement now seemed short-lived.
Despite our efforts, the fact is that the level of mitigation ambition contained in your NDCs will determine the fate of countries like my own. For unless the climate crisis is addressed, there will be no Build Back Better for countries and economies like mine. Frankly, at the global level, we need to move from placatory rhetoric to real, effective action, or numerous nations across the world will be robbed of their future. I would like to believe that the major emitters are not capable of what would in essence be close to climate genocide. I'd like to believe that we are visible and indispensable for them. Let us therefore together act on the responsibility which the climate crisis imposes on all nations and all peoples. The time is now. I thank you.
The Barbados Investment and Development Corporation achieved certified exports of almost $300 million between January and November 2020, despite the major disruption to trade. Word of this from International Business and Industry Minister Ronald Toppin as he addressed the recently held BIDC Awards ceremony. Toppin said 2020 has not been a wasted year despite the challenges and would be used as a stepping stone.
To the BIDC's certifications officers who ensured that export documents were certified during the many weeks of national lockdown, we recognize your efforts. This is an achievement. To keep the export process going under such circumstances is noteworthy. And despite the major disruptions to trade, we were able to achieve certified exports of almost $300 million between January to November 2020, which, though below last year's tally of $333 million, is still worthy of mention given the circumstances. We recognize the efforts of our exporters in this regard, and we pledge our continued support to them in the new year.
He said his ministry and BIDC are focused on taking advantage of opportunities out of every crisis.
The Ministry of International Business and Industry, and by extension the BIDC, are very focused on wresting opportunity out of every crisis we face presently and in the future. Even now, as I speak, we are exploring what products we can export, what markets we can penetrate, which routes we can take to get there, which producers we can aid in scaling up and exporting, what interventions the government can make to attain the big and audacious goal we have set for ourselves, which is growing our exports exponentially.
A Barbadian woman and a male visitor are the latest COVID-19 cases. The 20-year-old visitor arrived on Caribbean Airlines on December 4th, while the 35-year-old Barbadian came in on an American Airlines flight on December 10th. They were both asymptomatic and tested positive on their second tests. Meantime, there are 17 people in isolation after one person was released. Barbados has now recorded 294 COVID-19 cases, comprising 153 females and 141 males. 270 people have recovered.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from our region now, Grenada has recorded a cluster of 26 positive COVID-19 cases originating according to reports from the Sandals Resort. The Ministry of Health said the positive cases include guests and employees as well as their contacts. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sean Charles warns that the number of new cases is likely to increase.
Up to Friday of last week, we had 45 confirmed cases. As of yesterday, we have recorded a total of 71 confirmed cases of COVID-19. However, it is very likely that this number will increase significantly once all of the pending results and the additional tests are completed.
Over in Belize, the medical fraternity has been honoring its fallen colleagues. Last evening, sirens blared and emergency lights flashed as frontline workers remembered two doctors who lost their lives over the weekend to complications due to COVID-19. According to reports, twin doctors Kevin and Kenneth Guerrera died hours apart and are the country's first healthcare workers to succumb to the virus. In expressing condolences to their family, friends, and colleagues, the Ministry of Health assured the public that it values the health of all its frontline workers and continues to work diligently to ensure that they remain prepared and equipped for COVID-19. And finally, the first doses of the Pfizer vaccine were trucked from a factory in Michigan on Sunday, while some were loaded onto cargo planes to be delivered to sites across the U.S. More from Reuters TV.
The first shipments of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine left a Michigan factory on Sunday, kicking off a historic effort to stop a surging pandemic that is claiming the lives of more than 2,400 Americans a day. Mask-wearing workers at a Pfizer factory in Kalamazoo began packing up the vaccine in dry ice early Sunday morning and loaded the first shipments onto trucks bound for FedEx and UPS planes that will whisk the precious cargo across the country. U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Alex Azar on CBS Face the Nation Sunday laid out the ambitious distribution plan for the coming weeks and months ahead.
So we're shipping 2.9 million doses of vaccine. So whenever they get them in arms, that's 2.9 million people getting vaccinated. We'll be getting more and more Pfizer product, and we've got a 12.5 million of Moderna product, assuming that we get approval at the end of this week on Moderna that will ship out very soon thereafter. So 20 million vaccinations this month. And then we think we'll be up to 50 million total vaccinations of people by the end of January, and 100 million shots in arms by the end of February, just with the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines.
Operation Warp Speed Chief Advisor Dr. Monsef Slaoui said on Sunday that the U.S. expects to immunize 100 million people, or about 30% of its population, by the end of March.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.